Hello, fellow tea drinkers. Welcome to Oversteeped. Today, we're going to be touching on one of the most fundamental needs humans have, not just in relation to survival, but also in all aspects of life: food. It might be obvious, or even common sense to point this out, but living things need sustenance. Yet, I find that writers often move their characters from one scene to another without addressing the basic needs their characters should have. In a previous video, I talked about the importance of slowing things down in your storytelling in order to accommodate the little moments that help to establish and maintain the illusion of reality within a fictional world. Showing characters eating meals together isn't just important for the sake of adding warmth to a scene or to give them something to do while dialogue is happening. Rather, mealtime does more to indicate a sense of humanity in a subtle way that shouldn't be overlooked. A lot can be said with food in ways that aren't so obvious as simply acknowledging a basic need that must be fulfilled in order for your characters to survive. Let's consider what the inclusion of something so basic can do for your story and the characters within it. Scarcity or abundance can be indicated. A meal eaten by someone in the bourgeoisie shouldn't be identical to that of an impoverished member of the proletariat, whether fictional or otherwise. Being conscious of things like food deserts, inequalities that contribute to malnutrition and malnourishment, and access to safe and affordable resources will help you not only determine what your characters may eat, but will add authenticity to a variety of traits that you can describe in your narrative. Restrictions or freedoms can be indicated. A character with food allergies, intolerances, or cultural limits on what can or cannot be consumed is going to approach meal preparation and participation in a completely different manner than someone who may not have these factors to worry about. Consider what kinds of religious practices your characters adhere to, if your characters need any medical equipment to safely navigate their dietary health, or if your characters are particularly squeamish regarding certain kinds of foods. Experience or ignorance can be indicated. Practiced chefs shouldn't use the same language in dialogue or keep the same habits in prose as characters who have no kitchen skills or are otherwise poor cooks. Be mindful of the way characters approach food preparation. Is there care given? Is there confidence? Is there an obvious lack of common sense or knowledge? In addition to this, keep in mind what is appropriate for a character's culture. Cuisine is an important aspect of all culture and is very easy to overlook if you're not being intentional in your work. Indicating a lack of familiarity with a certain ingredient, describing an aversion to a certain food, or abstaining altogether from the consumption of something specific can portray an aspect of a character in ways that feel more natural than rushing into lazy descriptions of their predilections. Food can also indicate what kind of lifestyle your character has. It might be easy to write that your protagonist is healthy or that they're mindful of their body, but it's certainly more satisfying to read about a character's habits rather than being spoon-fed information up front in a very boring manner. This comes back to the old idiom of show, don't tell. Food choice isn't just about what your character does, but also what they do in contrast to other characters. After all, it's in the presentation of traits where personality rises to the surface. There must be an individual quality, a uniqueness that separates your protagonist from other characters. Or in contrast, the lack of individuality must be intentional. Perhaps your character lacks agency. Perhaps your character lives in a society that dictates a food ration. Perhaps your character subsides on mostly low-quality food due to income insecurity. How a character eats is also important. Do they use their hands? Do they use chopsticks? Do they use cutlery? What kind of table manners do they have? What kind of etiquette should you describe? Table manners are one of the earliest things we learn as humans, and depending on the society and culture you grew up in, these manners can vary greatly. I invite you to think on introductions and establishing scenes from some of the most celebrated works in literary history. There are countless examples that I'm sure you would agree were impactful for their inclusion. In J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, so much is said not only about the focal character of the story, Bilbo, but of all the peripheral characters that were introduced shortly after, simply by the mere inclusion of the way that Hobbit culture put such an emphasis on food. This was the stage used to showcase the core personality of Bilbo, the dwarves, and Gandalf. It did so much to establish their dynamic by forcing Bilbo to become the impromptu and begrudging host of the gathering's dinner. There are so many other examples that come to mind, but it's pointless to go through them all. I encourage you to consider including this often dismissed tool for creating relatability in otherwise fantastic worlds and characters. That being said, I'm going to take my own advice and have a nice cup of tea. Glean what you will from my character from its inclusion and emphasis. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to be notified of future content. Thank you, and good night.